We're discussing Juneteenth today. Juneteenth is the oldest nationally celebrated commemoration of the ending of slavery in the United States. And today we're talking about this with the president, the national president of Juneteenth organization, Mr. Steve Williams. Welcome, Mr. Williams. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. Hope you can hear me okay.
And we can hear you just fine. Thank you. Thank you so much. Welcome to our co-host, Dr. Cannon, James Cannon.
Hey, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today. Brother Steve, it's good to see you again.
Thank you, Dr. Cannon.
Michael Tynes.
How you doing? Appreciate you stopping by, Mr. Williams.
And
Thank you very much.
Dr. Tatum.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Steve Williams, all I can say is all things Juneteenth.
All right.
Absolutely.
I got your message this moment. I'll get that information to you.
Okay. From its Galveston, Texas origin in 1865, the observance of June 19th as the African American Emancipation Day has spread across the United States and beyond. Mr. Williams, we want you to just explain to us your role and give us information about what is going on with Juneteenth.org.
Well, Juneteenth.org is owned by us. We are the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation. JOF was founded back in 1994 when Reverend John Mosley called Juneteenth leaders from around the nation to New Orleans, Louisiana, in order to bring America's attention to Juneteenth. Our goal since then was to have America now be aware of several different methods, and one of those is legislation. So in 1997, with Greg Galloway, Dr. Myers, J.C. Watts legislation, considered from Oklahoma on the floor of the House to knowledge. Since that, we've gone through several iterations of trying to get it done through the political system. We first went for a holiday, then we learned that we had to get ratified by the states. What does that mean? After Martin Luther King, there was a moratorium based on any other holidays added to the calendar. So we had to get 39 states to acknowledge Juneteenth. 39 states to acknowledge Juneteenth was Nevada. And so from there, we were then brought up able to amend the calendar, and a senator from Texas wrote up an initiative called JR 45 2012, Senator K. Bailey Hutchinson, and for it to be a holiday. But the way that she wrote it kind of hamstringed America and hamstringed the movement because it was essentially focused on Texas. Once we found that out and the legislators need to bring it in, we decided to create a trail, a foundation that shows that it involves all of America. I, as a kid growing up in Colorado and California, knew from my family in Oklahoma. But we did that this day after educating the Senate, after educating in the House, after a lot of advocating, it was very easy for us to get put forward. Now, other things contributed to Juneteenth getting the elevation that it is now. Juneteenth has always been a vehicle that is used for social change and cause, all the way back to the 1890s, land rush in Oklahoma, in 1868, Poor People's March was formed on it, and organized around it. Barack Obama used it in Chicago, set up his office right across the street from Dr. Myers and Lustine Byers there. And recently, the proposal to make Juneteenth a holiday came from Senator Edward Markey, Massachusetts. He used it in his campaign. So Juneteenth has been utilized for a lot of things So Black Lives Matter movement picked it up. We weren't surprised and shocked. We just want to understand and the legacy, power behind Juneteenth. So, with that being said, we've been reaching out to a lot of the people in the House. We have a very good Senate footprint, very bipartisan. We've got about 30 and 30 on the senators on each side supporting Juneteenth. The House, we're not doing as good, but we're going to get it better by sticking to the grindstone and getting it done. Our first thing was we wanted an observance. We needed the observance. That's what we really wanted. Not a paid holiday, but a day of observance with a agenda to go along with it.
So, are we nationally or federal by the federal government? Is it being observed? Is it an observed day or not holiday? But do you have where are you with that national recognition?
So on February 25th, for the first time in the history of Juneteenth, we got our legislation both in the Senate and the House. This technique is used when you want to expedite the passing. So we had it introduced both in the Senate by Senator Smith and Senator Markey, right? And we had it introduced in the House. And we had it introduced in a way what they call zero findings. Zero findings means there's no context in the bill. Everybody understands what Juneteenth is. This technique is used to expedite the process of the topic, making it law. It narrows down the points for discussion or debate. What do you mean? If you have a findings and you have findings, then you might want to debate what the findings are, right? If you say last people free from slavery were notified Texas, on June 19th, and we know that's not the truth. Nobody can argue that point out. So we have zero findings. This means there's no context in there. You just accept Juneteenth for what it is and get the bill passed. Debate, not with arguing. Just, what is the impact of it? So as of the 25th of February, the bill is in both houses in Congress. It's going forward what they call committees. Committees look to see there are rules, how it will impact oversight committee, ways and means committee, different committees take a look at legislation. But because it's zero, because because of the zero findings, there's not much for them to debate about it, right? So it should move through pretty good.
Okay, so Juneteenth commemorates the African American freedom and emphasizes, according to your statement by Juneteenth organization, emphasizes education and achievement. How do you emphasize education and African American education post-slavery?
How do we emphasize it?
Yes.
Emphasis on education is by calling local people to action. The National Juneteenth Observance Foundation is an organization made up of hundreds of local organizations call together a program to put action. We have a program called Juneteenth 101, Introduction, Understanding what Juneteenth is about. We have a program called the 1519.
So to understand what Juneteenth is about, so that particular part of your program, I kind of want to understand here. So it you go into the schools, or you provide a curriculum. You're naming it Juneteenth 101 to enlighten, to educate, the schools, the students, right in the educational system.
So where we starting out with Juneteenth 101 is we are starting out at home base, which is the church. Juneteenth 101 has a Bible study type of feel to it. But we're going to get into the education system, right? But first, we've got to start educating our people, and the biggest network for that is through the church, through a Bible study program. We launched this program this year called on February 19th called Juneteenth Awareness Day, which is a very, very brief introduction, a 3-sheet thing that tells people about Juneteenth, because most kids are out of school during Juneteenth. So that's the reason why we have our first educational focus is through the church to December, get people educated. As we develop and get finished develop a full-fledged history curriculum, not just about Juneteenth, but about our role in American history, and other people's roles in American history, right? We will roll that out in schools. So we're working on that frequently. We have a group of people that are working on taking the syllabus and applying it to a curriculum that's going to be able to be expanded and elevated or simplified for younger people. It is a process we've been working on for about
how long?
A little bit over 2 years.
Okay. And how long has the Juneteenth organization or foundation been established?
25 years.
25 years. Okay. So
yes, we have a book and we have a basic on by Dr. Charles Taylor. This is the book called Juneteenth Celebration of Freedom. It has a teaching guide to it, right? It has a lot of information. And this book is on every governor who has celebrated or signed Juneteenth. Dr. Myers gave a copy written by Dr. Charles Taylor. And so that was our first goal of education for people. But I came on in understanding the educational process from being involved in, I realized that we needed a complete curriculum.
Okay.
Complete curriculum.
So that's what we're in the process of. Okay, so this book outlines basic history behind Juneteenth for.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
It talks about the Middle Passage. It talks about the enslaved people, right? And talks about the march to focusing on that. Dr. Taylor is a member of our education committee, to it, and the information that we have gathered over the last 3 years or so has inspired him to expand his book and rewrite it.
Okay. Over the past 25 years, what would you say have been some of the Juneteenth marked milestones?
Well, we got an apology for slavery. First apology for slavery, Dr. Myers did. Having 45 states pass legislation acknowledging Juneteenth, including Alaska and D.C., is a significant mark. No other organization in the history of America has done that. You know, we're the first to get it done. Mr. Doc Myers, I mean, our little part, because many documents are working on, I was just honored to do that. So those are some significant things that we have done. Along with helping launch Project 1619 with Alvin Pearson, the real understanding of that. So we've done a few things across on the national scope to be proud about.
Oh, great. Do you have developed, and then after this question, I'll yield the floor. Have you developed action plans or step-by-step how to mobilize communities, in within the Juneteenth or around the topic of Juneteenth? Have you developed a system that grassroots communities can actually follow?
We actually have a Juneteenth guideline for how to conduct ceremonies and how to conduct your Juneteenth commemorations. We provide a guideline because we understand every community is uniquely different. That's the point of being truly grassroots. So each year we have a theme and then we have certain topics. Last year we worked very hard to deal with the COVID situation and put out public service announcements and everybody know how we were functioning under that. We came up with car caravans, we came up with drive-bys, we came up with other things to keep the Juneteenth commemoration alive. We still had our flag raisings where we enabled our people to virtual technology to broadcast it and see what was happening and our proclamations. So we have a standard for communities to follow. We leave it very like an outline.
Okay, have you developed chapters, state chapters, or?
We have state directors because we have hundreds of organizations. That's what people do. We're not trying to be like an Urban League or an NAACP. Okay, we are grassroots. We're Juneteenth. You bring your Juneteenth organization online. You do your commemoration, and then you look to us. You look to your state director first, and your state director contacts the national office and puts you in. That's why we have hundreds. In our list, we've got over 1,000, 1,500 people that actually do Juneteenth events around the world. We make sure that they have the right direction that they're pointed in. They understand the mission and the goal, but we don't try to organize it in that. We're more of a nation, a family, and organization.
Thank you. Any one of our co-hosts can just jump in here anytime. Whoever wants to, go ahead.
Mr. Williams, how you doing? Can you hear me okay?
Steve, please. Steve, please.
I had a question about.
Oh,
okay, Steve. I had a question about the National Juneteenth Observance Committee, which you're obviously the president of. Just for some clarification for myself as well as some people listening, is the NJOF something like a think tank or a repository of historical information, or a little bit of both? Do you influence policy or something like that? Could you give us some clarification as to what your committee or organization actually does?
Well, our goal, our mission statement is to bring all Americans together to celebrate their common time of freedom, support, recognition, preservance, and observation of America. To that end, we have become a repository for knowledge and information. We have drawn in educators, historians, librarians, museum curators across the country, and they have the liberty to cooperate and work together without any of the traditional constraints. So with that being said, yes, we do that. We are also the people leading the charge and digging in with the government to make Juneteenth happen. So we really consider lobbyists as advocates. We are very involved in bridging the digital divide in our community. So we actually are in areas in all across the country, from Baltimore, Las Vegas, Mississippi. We are in St. Louis, in Galveston. We are actually bridging the digital divide, bringing technology to them and bringing education to coded dojos and different education facilities to technology for our people we haven't been exposed to before. So we're a combination of all those things that happen. We have a board of directors of 14 people, have all done extraordinary things with Juneteenth. A lot of them has passed the state legislation, so there are 2 people on that part. They're actually committee on the other part. We are community advocates, and we are a repository for the information. We are not trying, as in the words of W.D. Patterson, that means you're going to fail. We are the repository for that information. We got HBCU professors, we got university professors have come to us and said, hey, my university is hamstringing me here. Hey, did you know Black people were here before Columbus? Like, yeah, we know that, but we need empirical evidence. We need a source document. Let's put it together so it can be unequivocally stated instead of something like, Augustus Rogers talked about the Grimaldi using the jet stream to get to South America. This is back in the 1940s. So he was aware of it, he didn't have enough information. We actually got a team of people documenting that right now with the real evidence.
So, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep.
The question I would ask, and I appreciate you so much, Brother Steve. Really, we do. This is a powerful opportunity for us as a people. How do we embrace other ethnic groups at this time that may want to participate? Are we saying, like Moses said, let us and our people go off and celebrate all by ourselves and worship all by ourselves? Or how do we say to other ethnic groups, are they invited to the celebration? And what if there's another ethnic group that wants to set up a chapter in their city to honestly help and commemorate and raise funds for Juneteenth? They're not Afro-American, they're not Negro, but they love the structure, they love the people, they got a heart in it. They want to open up a chapter. Are we saying this is only for us to do just for us? Are we saying, when you say community, are you saying everybody's invited to the celebration?
So let me take that parallel that you brought down, Dr. Ken, and take it even further. We often compare Juneteenth to Passover. Okay, we set the Israelites free, also same thing with us free. To that end, really understanding that biblically, when Moses left, it wasn't just Israelites that left with him. He took everybody that was associated with them. It weren't just all people who were born Israelites. And so when God gave them the commandment, he said, you and all your household and your married servants and those outsiders that are with you, right? All you self-same day. But when they left that self-same day, they left the people that were just for Israelites. With that being said, Juneteenth represents our freedom. It took more than just the U.S. colored troops were the peace navigators behind Juneteenth. They were the ones that marched across the country. But there were a lot of other people that contributed from other races and other cultures to our process for freedom. So, following that analogy, we take everybody with us. We wouldn't have, if that was our thought, we wouldn't have Melvin Terry. He's a brother in Montana who worked to get the Juneteenth legislation passed there. And when you see the Juneteenth celebrations there, you don't know where you think it's the NRA, because there's a bunch of white people with Juneteenth flags, doing that, and they got their guns with them, and they're saying we're going to defend our people and all of our people, and you one of our people. So we're not restricting it down to anybody. John Brown did a great job to try to bring attention to that. He tried to recruit Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass. But they said, hey, that's a one-way trip. We got a lot more fighting to do. Look at you, John, on that. We'll come up. And then Frederick Douglass actually went to Harper's Ferry and gave a speech a few years after John Brown was murdered. So our motto is to bring all Americans together. Not the ones we like, not the black ones, not the Asian ones, but all Americans together. I'm curious then for young people like Brother Michael, who brings the feel of the young people, the heart of the young people, the thoughts where their mindset are allowing infiltration to take place, when we allow other ethnic groups to come in and participate, be on the board, help us raise money. Michael, I'm not sure, but with two schools of thought, I'm curious the other thought of the side of the young people that's more militant. Is that correctly expressed?
Yes, as you mentioned, there are multiple, perspectives on things like this. Certainly, I would say that even, I guess the ones you may describe as militant, the younger ones, and I would probably, maybe you describe me as this, we certainly do acknowledge the fact that you can have tactical unity, meaning you can work in concert with other groups and you can stand in solidarity with other groups and allow those groups to stand in solidarity with you, so long as you don't lose sight of your initial goal. So what you're talking about is an understandable fear, something that's happened to Black people historically, which is the dilution of our agenda. And I would just say that both of those two things aren't mutually exclusive. You can still the substance of your agenda and still work with others. In the case of African Americans, I think the central point to focus on is so long as we maintain that we want to pursue policies that, as Mr. Williams is doing, educate not just other people but ourselves on our history, as well as pursue policies that allow us to gain the opportunities we're owed and control of our own economy and resources. As long as we continue to keep that in mind, our initial focus on that, we can ally people and incorporate them in our agenda as well.
And Brother Steve, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Who would you consider during this process, the time you guys have been working on this initiative, who has been your biggest supporters and who has been your biggest opposers in this effort?
That's a dangerous question, Dr. Tatum. So let me backtrack to some things Mike said, and then I'll bring it up to where you said. Juneteenth has multi faces when you look at it. It's the self-advocacy, right? Self-determination and self-actualization, which the recipients of the 13th Amendment can develop out of Juneteenth. Once they understand that, they form cooperative economics, they build communities, and they were with themselves. At one time, there was a plan called the Lincoln Plan. The Lincoln Plan was different from some other types of plans where McCabe and other people were going to construct home as an all-black state, right? The all-black economy. That's why black people, if you heard last night, Dr. Little, they were coming to Oklahoma in droves, right? Because it was encouraging to do that. And the thing that's so special about it is that you had enslaved people, right, from America, formerly enslaved people who were showing up. You had free men, black people who were never enslaved, and you had free men, black people who weren't enslaved, not. We were all three different types of cultures, but we all worked together in harmony and unity. Okay, so that was the thing that was going on there. So with that happening, that gave us the opportunity to learn from, it gives us the opportunity to study from there how we can, at the same time, ourselves develop that. Now, what happened actually after that was what we had to avert this time, and that was the clash between us and whites who were moving into Oklahoma, right, at the same time. We were making money, doing our thing. They wanted to come get some. They saw that clash. My grandfather called it before it happened, right? He said, y'all need to arm up, be ready. So, but we have to do a little bit better than that. With that being said, that kind of segues into who's our biggest supporter. It's been equal in most times, a little bit heavy on the Republican side because it's a Republican legacy. You understand that they kind of hold on to that party of Lincoln type of, we want you to be free for the rollover. So it's been pretty much balanced on both sides. Right now, we're facing some challenges with the legislation, but we're going to work through it. I would just say pretty much our supporters have been. It's a tricky question, Greg, because we've been told a lot of things, and politically correct and not the pro people. It's not. I mean, this is a fact. Barack Obama used Juneteenth to get the start going. He marched with Westing Byers and Dr. Myers in Chicago. He called us into a Senate office in 2008. I was me, Dr. Pritchard, Dr. Myers, a few other people to talk about what he was going to do for Juneteenth when he became president.
Now, certainly.
Steve,
okay, go ahead.
Can I ask one more question?
Go ahead. We're fighting for the holiday.
Okay, Steve. Now, just while we got this audience, this platform, what do you need in way to where you at now for our signatures? What is your major request now that would help this effort?
In general, our major request is to get people to go to Juneteenth.us, find the petition. It's Juneteenth.us, Juneteenth.us, Juneteenth.United States. Juneteenth.us. Go there and sign the petition. First and foremost. The second thing that you can do if you want to you can contact your local U.S. congressman and tell them to support H.R. 1320, which is the current Juneteenth legislation bill is in the House.
Thank you so much.
The third thing, if you want to do, is send an email to join@njof.org, nationaljuneteenth.org, and put your name in the subject line and join us. So I like to do things in threes, number of God. So, sign the petition.
Might be able to ask another question.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Go ahead.
For Mr. Williams.
No, go ahead.
More of a personal one.
No,
more of a personal.
Where you at, Michael? Where you at, Michael? What city are you in?
The screen? Oh,
no,
what city? I'm in St. Joseph, Michigan.
St. Joseph, Michigan. Okay, yeah. I can come up there and put you in a headlock, young man. Call me Mr. Williams one more time. I love the response.
Oh, sorry about that. Steve.
And I can do it.
Personal question to you then, Steve. What makes you, if at all, if you're optimistic about the future of your efforts, what makes you optimistic the most about what you're doing and what you hope to accomplish?
You, Michael. That's what makes me optimistic. We have a lot of young people in Juneteenth. That's what makes me optimistic. Making sure they're appropriately aware, making sure they're appropriately educated, and make sure that they're appropriately socialized. That's what we have young people on our board of directors that are in their 20s, and we have people who's 94. So young people is what makes me optimistic. Okay, that's what gives me hope for the future. Right? We've got extreme people. We've got people from the Black Panther Party that was there. We've got people who want to take guns and do all kind of crazy stuff as a part of our nation. But we have to bring everybody together. It's not who we like, not who we might agree with. Our mission is to bring all Americans together, not just the old Americans, not just the middle, but the young Americans too. We got to bring us all together. So that's what makes me optimistic. When I see the young people, we were at a reef lane. They were mad at the statue of Abraham Lincoln, right? When black men down are pulling them up. But we told them the story about this statue in Emancipation Park, right? About this lady who, black woman, was formerly enslaved, where she was so upset when President Lincoln got assassinated that she took her last $5 and put it in a pool, started building the statue for him, right? They didn't know that. They didn't know that, right? And then they come to find out that, hey, what you told, like I said last night, Lincoln was a complex person. If you look at the whole track record, you see where he was going. Yes, he loved the Union. Before he loved the Union, he was fighting against slavery. He was fighting against it, any form of it. So we have to make our people are properly educated, not into the midst of like saying, subversive indoctrination that we've all been subjected to.
Okay.
As a historian, that's a question. As a historian, sir, my question would simply be, looking at the fact that we've made Dr. Martin Luther King a National Day of Celebration holiday, and looking at the fact, as much as he means to us in this country, and looking at the fact that we want reparations to take place, and in looking at the fact that Juneteenth is what we push for a celebration, putting those in the proper category of saying what really should become first at this hour. We appreciate the fact that we did make Dr. King a holiday, but the value of looking at what we're actually celebrating with Juneteenth, I'm not taking anything away from Dr. King's holiday, but in hopes for reparation, which one is really more meaningful, Dr. King's holiday or a day of holiday, a celebration for Juneteenth that would lead to reparations? If we were to put the stepping blocks together, which one would you say would look as a historian would be more paramount to happen, Dr. King's celebration or Juneteenth celebration that would lead to reparations?
So I was a young man out in the streets marching. As a matter of fact, I was in Denver at the time with Wellington Webb, the first black mayor of Denver, and Daddy Bruce Randolph marching for Dr. King's Day. Daddy Bruce pulled me to the side and talked to me and told me, he says, we're marching for the wrong thing. We don't need a holiday. We need a day of observance, right, in order to get a message across. King Day wasn't the appropriate thing for that. The message was from God in the back of my head when I was in my early 20s, right? I Teddy Randolph, a great King man who brought the whole city of Denver together. Juneteenth is the admission of the end of slavery wholeheartedly. You cannot ask for somebody to repair something they have not yet admitted broken. Dr. King doesn't address the end of slavery, the acknowledgement of a man and his work. Black History Month, as Dr. Pritchard explained to me, was about America rejuvenating itself in the month of February, which February means rejuvenate, right? Start new again, with the study of Black history. That's how America holy. For America to come to terms with chattel slavery, all that stuff that happened from Bacon's Rebellion, Juneteenth. No, Bacon's Rebellion. So slavery started in America. Slavery started in America, Bacon's Rebellion. It started in 1619 when we got off the boat. It was 1680, Bacon's Rebellion. Juneteenth. That is important. Acknowledgement of that. You cannot get something until you acknowledge the end of something. So while America is still there, you have to acknowledge the chattel slavery. Once that is set in, then it can lead roads towards education, for employment, for everything else, and reparation. Hard to talk about something, something. There's nothing to say. It actually happened and it ended. It's hard, It's like if you go to work, Dr. Cannon, you don't never turn in your paycheck. You don't never turn in your time card, but you say I was here 40 hours this week. How are they going to pay you?
In your push, was it easier to get Dr. King's Day of Observing and Holiday passed through than Juneteenth? And if so, in your opinion, why?
Because Dr. King celebrated a man. Juneteenth is saying there was slavery, we enslaved people, and it's over. It's a hard thing to get people to admit an error. It's hard for people to admit something wrong. It's been very difficult. Like I said, looking at it.
Will we get it done?
Juneteenth has been the most legislative topic in American history. You look at it. So we will get it done. We will get it done. As a nation, we will get it done. So we have a network of people. Congress knows who we are. They understand that we are really no frills. We have been at odds with other different major Black organizations because we don't compromise. Then again, it always comes back to say, okay, you guys are right. So we have to keep in total line like this. And sometimes towing the line is not easy. As Brother Michael's, if you want to compromise yourself, you can get a lot of things done. If you don't want to compromise yourself, you got to get that rope, go, baby.
So there've been Juneteenth activities and local observations from state to state, community to community, neighborhood to neighborhood. So for the past 25 years, my question is, for the past 25 years, so we're trying to get this to be a recognized holiday. Um, what's been the biggest challenge? You know, there was a question earlier about the allies for Juneteenth. Who's been the best allies, the best supporters, and and we certainly don't want to eliminate anyone who wants to be a supporter or an ally. However, on your own site, on Juneteenth and society, it says in the early years, little interest existed outside of the African American community in participation in the celebrations. In some cases, there was outwardly exhibited resistance by barring the use of public property for the festivities. Most of the festivities found themselves out in rural areas around rivers and creeks that could provide for additional activities such as fishing, etc. And then often church grounds. So it sounds like, and then eventually African Americans became landowners because it was such a struggle and so much of a resistance against the Juneteenth activities. You know, even observing that, okay, now yes, we're free. Period. Finally, and that so land was donated and dedicated for these activities by the African Americans themselves. So, and one of the earliest documented land purchases in the name of Juneteenth was organized by Reverend Jack Yates. And so, with that,
Yeah,
pardon me?
yeah, they did. They had to buy their own land to celebrate Juneteenth. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess my point is in being trying to be, you know, all inclusive, and you know, it's still a struggle, you know, for it to be acknowledged or to become a law. How I mean, how are you going to get the support? We can't say that we have the support of all of the you know, everybody, you know, to be all inclusive.
Well, we have more support now, Dr. Mary Lee, than we ever had before for Juneteenth. Partially because of the strides that Black people have made in America.
Mm-hmm.
Partially because of the elevated awareness of it. I just got off a phone with a member of the House of Representatives, who's a staunch Republican, and he was like, "Well, you know, the issue was so and so." I said, "Listen, don't worry about so and so, right? Donald Trump said he made Juneteenth famous. Did he not? You can make it legal. Take it to the next step. When we get this phone call right now, especially over the last year, I'm dealing with Democrats, I'm dealing with Republicans, and I'm dealing with Trumplicans. And everybody wants to get behind Juneteenth. This has never happened before. Okay? When it first happened back before he decided to have his campaign call, we got phone calls from West Virginia, Kentucky, Iowa, who definitely weren't us, wanted to know what is Juneteenth and how can we help. Okay, so God works in mysterious ways, and everybody is subject to what God's going to do. So
with miracles to perform.
Yeah, so you know, as I've told people who've got issues, like I have one of my staunch people says, "I just can't talk about that man. I'm upset." Like, okay, you got to take the emotion out of it. You got to get down to it. And guess what? It was a runoff. The person elected in his district said, "I'm putting you to the test," right? Because now the person elected to your district was one of the few people President Trump came out afterwards and supported and got elected. So now you got to go to that person and tell them to get behind HR 1320. This is what you say to get there with them. He's like, "Oh man," like I said, all Americans, not the ones we like, not the ones we agree with, right? All of us. So therefore, God's putting you to a test.
Okay.
I'm curious, sir, with the opportunities that they shared and Dr. Mary shared of them buying property and buying land in order to hold those festivities. Have we followed suit in that as an organization from an entrepreneurial standpoint? Are there properties that are owned, and is there forecasting possibly to own properties, large parts of property in every state across this country, if for no other reason but for us to be able to gather, following that original example of them buying the property for their celebration? My question is, are we following suit in that example?
But we don't really have to right now because of where we're at politically, where we were at then. Okay, we have markers. We got a national marker for Juneteenth in California. We got one in Galveston. We used to have problems in places like Muskogee, Oklahoma, with Juneteenth. That's what's in Muskogee right now. Black Mare, first one. Okay, we used to have problems in Tulsa.
There's no property that we have purchased that we under our control.
Some people have places that they purchase and control. More importantly, we go in through resolutions, proclamations, right, and have the government, the local government, support us. But when you go in a place like Birmingham, Alabama, with Ginger Ward, right, had a lot of issues fighting with the Historical Society. That's exactly what Michael's talking about. The Historical Society wanted to come through and help. There's a whole bunch of people who aren't us trying to tell us how to do our campaign, how to do our commemoration. Well, we got in there and we wrestled with them, we argued with them, beat them over the head with some legislation, and then we called the mayor, and the mayor said, okay, I'll get the park and the street and the police, and we ain't charging you.
Okay.
You can buy your own land.
All right. Thank you so much. We're winding down. We've got about 3 minutes here. We're going to ask each one of our co-hosts to do a summary of your thoughts, and our last voice would be Mr. Steve Williams, starting with Dr. Tatum.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lee, Steve Williams, for being on. I just want to thank God for what you're doing. I commend you and applaud you. And hopefully, before you get off, just tell us a little bit about that commemorative coin for Juneteenth. I think that's a great idea.
Michael?
Thank you, Steve, for stopping by and educating us on stuff like this, things we need to know. And like you said, I also want to thank you for efforts that you've pursued to get more young people involved in what you're doing with the National Juneteenth Observance Committee. I appreciate that, because we do need to transfer this information from the older demographic to the younger demographic so that the fight can continue. I just thank you for bringing this to us and sharing your experience as well as your knowledge. I hope we can have more conversations like this to educate the people in the future.
Thank you.
Beautiful, Brother Steve and Dr. Lee. I appreciate you so very much as well. The interview we did with my son on Nick Cannon on last night is powerful. People can re-listen to that show, which is powerful. Listening to the synergy that we bring together, I think one of the most important things that in this synergy we continue to create. And I think if somehow, I like the fact that if we can think about buying property, large lands of property, even if it's just set aside for that celebration. I think that the celebration is worthy of that. That gives us a reason to pull resources. And just like the Jewish community, when they go to set aside to worship or to celebrate, it doesn't necessarily be to worship God, but it's to celebrate who they are. They have their own facilities, their synagogue. It doesn't have to be a church, but it could be a location, a large masses of land in every city, every state that is owned by Juneteenth, all things Juneteenth.
Thank you.
And if we don't do nothing there but celebrate, I think that would be great.
Thank you. Mr. Williams.
Yes, thank you very much. Those are very good suggestions and programs that we need. We want to thank everybody for coming out and listening to this. Please go to Juneteenth.us, find the petition, have everybody you know go there and sign the petition. And if you get a chance, call your U.S. representative and tell them to support H.R. 1320. Above all, send an email to join at nationalJuneteenth.org, your name in the subject line, so we can get you on board. And let's get you educated so you can really understand what all things Juneteenth mean and how we can go forward.
Thank you so very much. Thank you all. Thank you for joining us. And till next time, we appreciate you. Stay well, stay safe. Thank you.